Okay, well, calculating area. When we calculate area, we are calculating the number of squares. So to find the number of squares, we really just need to do length times width equals area. So basically, all area formulas are based on length times width. So if I take a look at the area of a rectangle or a square, I just do length times width. Okay, there's our length, there's our width, and that gives us the number of squares that we're going to find inside there. The square is just going to be length times width again, but square is a little bit special, so we're going to square that instead of use multiplication. Okay, the area of parallelogram, well, again, everything's based on a rectangle, so we can get squares. So if I take that little piece there and I move it over, I can just fit it in there. So really I'm just dealing with a rectangle of this size. So if I think of the area of this rectangle, it's just going to be length times, I'm not going to call it width, but I'm going to call it height. Actually, maybe I'll change that even to base. So that length is the base times height. So when I look at that, essentially I'm just making a rectangle. As long as I take 90 degrees, to get into square we need 90 degrees, my height at 90 degrees, and the length of the base, okay, that's going to give me the equivalent rectangle to that. And same thing here. This is going to be base times the height. Okay, and again, it has to be a 90-degree height. We don't use this length at an angle. That's wrong. Okay, we want to use the base times the height, the perpendicular height, the height at 90 degrees. So maybe I better draw it in there as the height. Base times height. The triangle area is going to be based on a rectangle as well. If we take a look at that rectangle, this triangle area is exactly half of that rectangle. So basically we want base times height, but we don't want the whole area. We're going to only take half of it. Okay? And so the same thing, it doesn't matter if it's an equilateral triangle, we still can make our rectangle base times height. Yeah, we don't want the whole thing, we only want exactly half of it. So we're going to do base times height divided by 2. So triangles are half of the rectangle. And again, we did the area of a circle. If I have r, I can make my r squared like that. And we know that about 3 of those fit in there. And we're going to say pi of them fit in there. The other thing we could say is we could take a diameter square. Okay. And this is the one we want to use, although I just want to show you an alternative. If I take the diameter square, about 3/4 of that diameter square is the circle. In fact, I'm not going to use 3/4, I'm going to use pi over 4. Instead of 3/4, pi over 4 is about 3/4. So there it is. We can actually use the diameter to calculate area. Okay, again, I don't recommend this one. We should really use pi r squared because that's the one we're more familiar with. There's nothing wrong with this. This one works. Okay. So the area of the playground is 180 meters squared. It's a rectangular playground. It doesn't say rectangle, but we should assume it's rectangular. So I have a playground like this. There's 180 squares in here. And I have a side length of 12. Okay. How long is that playground? Well, our multiplication model, this is our multiplication model. We know that length times width equals area, or area divided by length equals width. So if I want to find out that width, I can do 180 meters squared divided by 12 meters. 180 divided by 12 is 15. Meters squared divided by meters is 15 meters. So we can get our 15 meters that way. And notice that the units also are important. Meters squared and meters.